guys, welcome back to the channel. Today on the channel we'll be learning how to make this trendy overlap corporate pants. So the pants opens up this way. You can see underneath we have like a basic corporate pants, and then it has this overlap design. So if this is what you're interested in, you want to keep watching, and if you're yet to subscribe to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and also give this video a thumbs up. Let's get started.
You say you need your space, then pull me close.
So we're going to start off with drafting. So I already indicated my starting line. Now for the band of this trouser, you can use between 1.5 to 2 for the width, and then placing that out for 2 inches, which in my case, I marked my hip point. I also marked my crouch depth line and then the knee line. So what you want to do for your crouch depth is to divide your round hip by 4 and then add 1.5 inches or 2 inches, depending on how full you want your crouch area to be, and depending on how the point where you wear your trousers from. Because this I made it as a high-waisted trouser, so you want to take note of this little point. So still placing that 2 inches outward, I'm going to mark the full length. So the full length I marked for this trouser was 48 inches. I'm going to now, make some changes to that as we go on. So I'm marking half quarter of my round hip measurement, which is 44 divided by 4 plus 1 inch. I mark that at the hip point, the crouch line, and then at the waist and connect it together. Now around the waist, I'm going to mark my waist measurement to this other point plus 1 inch of seam allowance and connect it to nothing at the second line, which is the hip line. All right, so this is what we have. Now to get the crouch extension for the front, what we need to do is to divide what we have already on paper by 4 inches. You go ahead, use your calculator, divide that by 4 inches, and whatever you get, you extend. Now on this point, you come up by 1 inch, and then you make a curve around that point for your front crouch curve. Now it totally depends. Your number you're going to get for the crouch extension depends on your hip circumference. Okay. Now at the top of the waist area, I came in by half of an inch. This will help for the waist to sit properly in front, and I reconnected back to the crouch extension, which I already marked. Now I'm going to take the measurement I have on my crouch extension. I will take that down to the full length of my pattern paper. So whatever measurement you have for the crouch area, which includes both your hip measurement plus your crouch extension, you're going to take it down to the full length of your paper. You extend that line to the full length of your paper. So usually when I am making my trousers, I'll come in at the knee area by 1 inches, and then at the full length line I come in by half of an inch. But in the case of this trouser, I just used 1 inch on both ends. I came in 1 inch from the knee area, I came in 1 inch at the full length line. Now, if you want your trouser to be more penciled at the hem, you can use that 1.5 inches, okay? But I'm using 1 inch because I don't want it to be too small. I didn't I ended up not removing this, okay? So because we're still going to need a seam allowance to join our piece together by the sides, I just marked that down, okay, for us to have a better understanding. So this, we're just drafting a basic trouser, and as we go along, we alternate it to make the trouser we want to make. Now I have this pattern down. I finished with the front. So this other part I have here, instead of cutting it out, I'll leave that. This is going to be the allowance for joining together on both sides, both by the sides and then for the inseam, which is the crouch area. Okay, so I have that, and I'm going to use my scissors to cut out this pattern. So around the front crouch curve, I'm adding half of an inch so that I don't want to add any allowances to my paper when I'm cutting on my fabric, right? Now I've placed this pattern on another paper, which is going to serve as the back, and then I'm extending the lines I have on it outwards from the waist, the crouch extension line, the knee point, the hip point. You're just going to extend it out on both sides, and make sure that you have space at the top and then you have space by both sides. So you're going to come in 2 inches from your actual measurement of the waist, not that allowance we added. Remember, we added half of an inch to the crouch extension for the front. So I made a mistake by coming in from that line initially. So I just adjusted that. I came in 2 inches from my actual measurement, and then I went up by 1.5 inches. So I'm going to replace that 2 inches on this other side and then measure what I have on my actual measurement like this and measure like this, and it matched. And then the next thing I'm going to do is just create a slanted curve coming from the part where I went up by 1.5 inches to that point. Now, this 1.5 inches, if you have a small butt, please use 1 inch, okay? And then around the hip area by the sides, I just came out 1 inch, and then I'm connecting it to meet the waist area, right? So if you don't want the hip area to be so free, I always like my hip area to be free. I don't like my trousers to be tight around the hip area. You can use half of an inch, okay? If you don't want yours to be free like mine is, you can use half. And then around the crotch extension, I marked half of an inch, and I'm going to blend this into the knee. You see that I didn't add any allowance to the back, okay, because we already added to the front. We don't want the leg area of our trouser to be too bogus. We're not trying to achieve like a wide leg trouser in this case. I hope you understand what I'm trying to explain. So if you want yours to be wider, you just have to add more allowances. Now for the crouch extension of the back, I used 2 inches for that extension. Now I'm going to create a curve coming from the upper part to that point where I marked my 2 inches for the crouch extension. So I just did a point initially, and then I went in with my marker again to now connect my line properly. Make sure you're connecting your line properly. Okay, now I can add half of an inch for the seam allowance to join both back crouch areas together. So all these measurements, addings, they're important for while you're stitching. You can actually decide not to add this on your pattern and then add them while you're cutting on your fabric. Okay, I just wanted to just show you what I'm trying to achieve here. Now I'm going to also connect the extension area for the back. Just connect it to blend with the front part, the knee area of the front part. You can see that I also didn't add any allowance on the inseam. So I didn't add on both sides of it, and we finished drafting our pattern for both the front and the back. So I'll just go in with my scissors to cut. So while cutting on our fabric, the only place we're going to add any allowance is the upper part, which is the waist part. We're going to be adding allowance to serve as our band joining allowance. Now I've gone ahead to cut out a piece of paper, which is going to be for the pocket. So for this, I have the width I have here is 8 inches of width, and then the length is 11 inches. Now, for my main pocket on my piece, my front piece, I went in 1.5 inches at the waist area, and then I came down 6 inches downwards, and I just connected that together. So we're going to trim this off and then keep that piece we just cut out aside. Please don't throw it away. Now we're going to bring back the piece for the pocket. So the open end where you have where it's open is where you're going to place to be facing the parts you just cut out from the front pattern, which you'll be using for your pocket. We're going to align them. You can see how it is. Don't place the part that is closed, okay? Place the part that is opened on that part. Now we're going to place it down and then trim just one piece, the upper piece. We trim it off so that it matches, and then we place back that piece we cut out from the front pattern. We place it down and then also trim off the second part. So this is so that this other part now matches with what you have at the back. So that when you're joining together, they are going to align properly. So this is the pocket piece. I just made a notch at the point which I'm going to attach to the front part and labeled it. So now we have this down. Now for the front part, while we're all here, the overlap, you want to decide where you want the overlap to come from. The back, the left side or the right side. So in my case, I want the right side to overlap and I want the left side to be normal. You can see from my trouser, the right side is where I have my overlap coming from, overlapping towards the left, and then the left side is normal. So I've determined where I want mine to be now. So we're going to cut out the left trouser for the front. So while cutting the left pattern for your front, make sure that your pattern is facing up. You can see mine facing up. And then the wrong side of your fabric is what is facing up. Okay, and you're cutting just a single piece for this. Remember, it's just one side that's going to give you the left front. That is what we're trying to cut. So we already added seam allowances to the sides. We're not going to start adding seam allowances to those ends. The only part, like I said, we're going to add seam allowance is around the waist. And then I'm also going to add half of an inch around the pocket area so that I can stitch my pocket perfectly. So I'll just do that, and then I'll add half of an inch around the waist area also. Apart from those points, I didn't add any allowances. So ensure that you place your pattern and your fabric just the way I have explained it so that you're not mistaken. And when you finish, make sure to indicate the wrong side and then the right side. So now I'm using this different chalk to write L. This is going to be the front. I don't want to make a mistake while I'm joining my pieces together so that it comes out looking perfect. So next, I'm moving on to cutting the back piece. So the back piece, we don't have any difference between the left side or the right side. So you're going to fold your fabric into two. Make sure you have a wide fold because the back is quite big, and you place your pattern paper on top of it. You can see me making adjustments, placing my pattern and making adjustments. But ensure that while you're using your fabric, you're not wasting that. So for the tutorial, this tutorial, I actually got 3 yards of fabric, but at the end of the day, I made use of about 2.5. I had quite a lot of fabric left by the time I finished. So if you're on a bigger side, you might exhaust the entire 3 yards. And if you're in a smaller side, you can use below what I used. So we're going to do the same thing, just cut it out and then add half of an inch to the waist area only. So I've finished doing that. Now to my front pattern, what I'm going to do is to now make a line. So you see me taking this measurement from the actual hip measurement I got. I'm going to get the midpoint of this line here. So I'm going to make that mark. I'll make that mark from the actual hip measurement, which I marked from the hip point to the crotch length and then to the waist length. And I'm going to connect it to the knee, midpoint of the knee, and then connect it down to the full length of what I have on my pattern paper. Remember I said what I calculated for the length was 48 inches, like what I used for the pattern. But when I finished, because what I usually do is to add a lot to my length, and then when I finish fixing my band and everything, I fit it and then know how to adjust the length. That's just what I do. So now we're going to cut through this line. So this means we're going to have a slash and spread for the right side. So you can either, there are actually two methods. You can actually slash and spread, or you make a different piece for the overlap and then place it together. So we're going to bring in the left part and then align them together. We're going to align the front, the right side, and the left piece, which we're already going to head to cut. We're going to align them together. So you're going to place them right side to right side. See how I'm aligning this? You're going to place them right side to right side. Now, the reason you're doing this is because you want to determine how much overlap you want, where you want your piece to fall to, like the overlap as it's coming from the right, where you want it to stop at the left side. So you're going to measure that. Now for mine, I actually did a lot. What I used was 11 inches, which is quite a lot. So my overlap got to my pocket area. That's how far mine went. So I don't know how you want yours to be. You can use 9 inch, you can use 8 inches, depending. I think the least you should use should be about 8 inches, depending on how overlapped you want. So I just indicated that point. So remember I said I used 11 inches for mine. Now we're going to bring a fresh pattern paper and then place this other pattern on top of it. So in my case, 11 times 11 gives me 22. Now the overlap, since we're using the same fabric, it's going to have like a ton. How will I explain that? Okay, so one piece is serving as the main piece of fabric, and the other piece is serving as a lining piece, but they are together. I hope you understand that. So that means we're going to multiply the actual measurement we want for that overlap. In my case, it is 11. So 11 times 11 is 22. So I'm going to place this, place my spread with 22 inches. Make sure you're using the exact measurement. If you're using 9 inches, 9 times 9, you're going to use 18 inches. If you're using 10, 10 times 10, you're going to use 20 as a times 10 plus 10. Sorry, not multiplication. In this case, it's addition. You're going to use 20 inches, okay? In my case, 11 plus 11 will give me 22 inches. So I just indicated that point. Now, you see from the other point, I used my paper tape to hold it down. And I'll do the same thing at this other end. It's just simply what you need to do to just indicate those points. Remember to do an addition of whatever number you want. You multiply it by 2, or you add by it the same number. Okay, that's just it. So what I'm going to do is to trim off the other part of the external paper. Now I'm going to make sure that this other new pattern paper, which I've laid underneath my first pattern, I'm just going to align it together. So I'm making sure that this works perfectly. It is well placed because my paper was actually moving. Make sure it is smooth and it is placed properly. You don't want it to be moving. So now that we've determined that, the next thing I want to do is to determine the midpoint of this paper. So the midpoint of it will be 11 inches, which is where they meet. So this is what I'm trying to explain. By the time you stitch it down, okay, you're trying to stitch this down, you're going to have it overlap. You're going to bring in the end of this part where the spread stops for both ends. They are going to be meeting, and then you're going to have this part overlap. So you can see how the paper here is closed up. This is how our fabric also will be closed up. This is how it will be. One part is going to serve as a lining piece and inner piece. So it will be lining itself, like using it to cover itself straightforward. We're not going to know bother our head about using a piece of fabric to turn it over. I hope you understand that. So now I'm just going to align the waist area of this pattern and then trim off the excess I have at the top. You want it to match with the actual pattern you had initially. Okay, so please just follow through with what I'm saying. Just cut out this excess so that it matches with what you have from your initial front pattern so that they match. So after ensuring that, the next thing is to cut on our fabric. So because we already have the left side, you're just going to place it one piece also. You place your fabric, one piece of your fabric also, and then you cut out. Now, in case for those that will say, what if I want my overlap to come from both ends? You're just simply going to cut out the same thing for the left and the right. That's just simply what you're going to do. It means that if you want your overlap to come from both sides, you have to, you will not cut out that left piece which we cut out initially single. You're going to now place both of them together this way, right side, fold your fabric together and then cut out two pieces and then do the same thing for you to achieve your overlap coming from both ends and then meeting at the middle point. I hope you understand that. So it's quite simple if you want to do that. You just need to follow the steps. But in this case, our overlap is coming from the right to end at the left. Now, ensure to also add that half inch at the waist area, which is the band allowance. After that, make a notch. So notch the part where your spread ends on both sides and then also notch the midpoint of this. It's important. So I'm going to take off my patterns now and I'll show you what I have on the table. So make sure the hem of this piece is straight. Okay, so I made sure of that after this. I make sure that I cut it properly so that the hem is straight and it's going to match with what I have on the back piece. So if I place the notch part of where my spread ends together, this is what I'm going to achieve. Okay, you can see it here. This is what I'm going to achieve. So when I bring in the left side and place it together, after sewing everything, they're now going to align together perfectly. So I hope you understand the cutting process. It's actually quite easy. You just need to be careful and follow through with everything I've explained thus far. So now that we have this, we've achieved this, we're going to start stitching. So you stitch the back crouch together by half of an inch. And after that, we're going to stitch the front. So for the front, I'll be using a front zipper. I've gone ahead to cut out my pocket. I added half of an inch all around this. So I've cut out the flap for my zip. What I'm going to do is to stitch both of them together. So I finished stitching the back and I finished inserting my zip and also stitching my pocket. So I already have a tutorial on the channel on how to fix your fly zipper. So I'm going to drop the link in the description box and also have that also explains how to fix pockets. So I'm going to just drop them in the description box so that you can watch that if you don't know how to do that. So next you're going to place your piece right side to right side around the crouch area. So I'm going to pin the midpoint of the crouch firstly, and then I'm going to pin the hem. So I'm going to stitch the inseam firstly and before moving to the side. So make sure you pin the midpoint first and then you pin the hems together and then pin it at the middle. So after pinning for this, the next you want to pin at the sides. You're going to place your sides together, right side to right side. Make sure you're placing them properly and then also pin the same way. Pin the top part, which is the waist area, and then move over to the hem, then pin the middle. Then you repeat the same thing. Now for This sides, because of the pockets, you want to also pin the pockets area so that they are lying flat and they are looking good. So make sure you pin your pocket area so that they're lying flat and looking good. So when you go back to your machine to stitch, you're not going to have any issues. Repeat the same thing for the other side. You pin the waist area, you pin the hem, you pin down your pocket areas and pin the middle point. After which you go over to your machine to stitch. So you're going to stitch the crotch area by half of an inch, sorry, by 1 inch, and you're going to stitch the sides by 1 inch on both sides. So I've finished doing that. This is what it looks like. Now for the overlap area, this is the right side of my fabric. I just went ahead to just pin the overlap area together to just show you what this is going to look like by the time we finish. Remember I said I used 11 inches. So overlapping mine takes it to the left side of the pocket. If you don't want yours to go that far, you just have to reduce yours. So now I'm pinning this again, right? So working with this, I'm just making sure I have my knot showing properly so that I know exactly what I'm doing. So I'm going to take this overlap ends with the way I'm holding it and go ahead and press. So I finished ironing that part down. I finished ironing. Now I want to make a cut, a half-inch cut. This part you want to concentrate on properly. This is where you might have issues. To fix your band, that part where they both meet, where the spread ends, that part, you want to come down half of an inch. Make sure it is half of an inch. You make a mark there and then you're going to make a cut to stop at that point. Now we're basically separating the waist, the main waist of the trouser from the overlap waist. That is what we're doing so that when we are fixing our band, we can fix the bands separately and will not have a bulky band. Now I'm going to flip everything to the inside and go back to that point. So we're going to be stitching them separately. After making that half of an inch cut, go ahead and stitch them separately. Okay, so you have the main waist separated and the overlap is separated. So you can see mine here, they are already separated. So this will help for me to make my band to fit. Okay, we're not using a full band because if you use a full band, like make a band that goes across everything, you're going to have a bulky overlap at the end. So now we're going to measure. So you measure your normal waist round from one end to the other end, and then you measure that of the overlap. So remember that the overlap has like two pieces of fabric at the top, but we're going to make a single band that cuts across both. That's the reason why we're separating it from the waistline so that we don't have a bulky band at the overlap area. Because if we make a single band that goes around this, by the time you fix your band, you will finish fixing your band, you're going to have like a double band at the overlap area, and that is not what we want. We just want a single band. So after measuring that, I went ahead to cut out the fabric. So make sure to add additional length to your pieces. Remember, we're using a bandwidth of 2 inches, so I cut out 5 inches of bandwidth. And then, like I said, remember to add additional pieces. So I'll go ahead and iron interfacing to mine. So I finished doing that iron interfacing. I folded half of an inch on both sides and folded it again half of an inch on itself. Now we're going to start with the bigger band, which is the actual waistband. So you want to indicate and get the midpoint of the band. I'm using my chalk to measure that. I'll be fitting the band from the center back. Okay, remember I added extra inches to the length. So I'm going to fit it from the center back. I'll take off the excess zip I have in at the front and then I'll fit it. So from the center back, that's where I'm going to start fitting my band into. I'm just going to tuck half of an inch of my waistline, which is the band allowance. I'm going to add that into it and then pin it down. So you start from the back, the center back, you pin from that point to the left side and then pin to the right side for it to end in front. And make sure that the band, because we have a zip, the zip ends in front, you want to make sure that your band is closed in front. Okay, our corporate pants, the zip stays in front, the band is closed in front, and then we have a button that overlaps it. So that's just simply what I'm trying to achieve. So like I said, I have a detailed tutorial on how to make a corporate band, a corporate pants on the channel. So I'm going to drop the link in the description box so that you can understand it. So after doing for the actual waistband, I'll repeat the same process on my overlap. Okay, the overlap is actually quite simple. So this is what it looks like after I finished doing that. So the next thing I want to do is to fit in loops for my piece. So from the intro, we have loops like from the style we're trying to recreate. I'm going to just fit my loops to it. So the loop for the overlap is actually is not functional, it's just decorative. While the other one, you can still decide to fit a belt to your piece. So what I'm going to do is to go over to the machine and fit my loops to the point I want them to sit. So I've finished doing that. This is what it looks like. You can see that our trouser is ready. So the final thing for this trouser is to fix buttons. So you fix buttons at the actual waist. Now for the overlap, you can use a hook and eye for that. You can use a press button or you can use an actual button. I use an actual button. So you can use whichever one you want for your piece. So this brings us to the end of this tutorial. Thank you for watching. Let me know of your thoughts in the comment section. If you have any questions, you have any place where you have any issues or you don't understand properly, just let me know and I'll do my best to explain it to you. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
You say you need your space, then pull me close. I read your silence louder than